Donald Trump's back, and he's out for control.
I would have every right to go after them.
Complete control.
I will wield that power very aggressively.
And he has a plan to get it.
Detailed plans for exactly what our movement will do.
It's called Project 2025, a 922-page blueprint to make Donald Trump the most powerful president ever. Overhauling the Department of Justice, giving Trump the unchecked power to seek vengeance, eliminating the Department of Education, and defunding K-12 schools, requiring the government to monitor women's pregnancies, and severe cuts to Medicare and Social Security. Donald Trump may try to deny it, but those are Donald Trump's plans.
Well, revenge does take time, I will say that. And sometimes revenge can be justified.
He'll take control. We'll pay the price.
I'm Kamala Harris, and I approve this message.
That was a new ad from the Harris-Walz campaign criticizing Project 2025 and attempting to make a clear link between former President Trump and the conservative blueprint. Joining us now is the national co-chair for the Harris-Walz campaign, Mitch Landrieu. Mitch, thank you very much for joining us this morning. So, of course, Donald Trump has distanced himself from Project 2025. It did feature heavily in Chicago at the DNC. What's your data, what's your polling on how much the American public understands about this project, how much they know about it, and how much it might influence their vote?
Well, first of all, they understand Donald Trump. They don't believe a word that's coming out of his mouth. As Governor Walz said, you don't really create a plan unless you intend on using it. It's what's in the plan that matters. That basically confirms that this race is between two big ideas. One of them is for a guy that thinks about himself, rich billionaires, and getting the power and the control to exert grievance over everybody that he disagrees with. And Project 2025 gives him the power to do that, from reorganizing the Department of Justice to go after his enemies to monitoring women's pregnancies. Or you can have Kamala Harris, who wakes up every day thinking about the American people, trying to create opportunities, reducing people's costs, and actually trying to lift us up for a new way forward. That's the choice that we have. And Project 2025 gives you a roadmap to where Donald Trump is absolutely heading.
So we came out of Chicago with an enormous amount of enthusiasm, unity, the word joy being thrown around an awful lot, and a lot of money raised by the vice president. We've seen the polls move, but not perhaps as much as the enthusiasm might suggest. At the moment, the candidates are neck and neck in most of the swing states. When would you expect to see more of a poll movement, given the kind of shift in, I think the word of the summer is vibe, in the Democratic team?
Well, first of all, the excitement has been incredible. Every day that Kamala Harris has been the candidate, we have won the election every day. You have to continue to build on that. You can see that she's come from a position of being behind to moving, fairly significantly even. We've never thought that this was going to be a blowout race. It's always going to be close, which is why we organized the campaign around the institutional organizations in the battleground states that matter the most. So we expect this race to be close until the last day. But we're built for it, and we're ready to go. And as you see, the vice president and Governor Walz are heading to the great state of Georgia to continue to campaign. I think they've made 2 rounds now of the battleground states, and we'll continue to do that every day.
It's Alexi McHammond. You're, of course, great at talking about infrastructure and making that connect with voters and making sure they really understand the investments that Biden and Harris have made on that front. How do you do the same thing with Project 2025? And in what swing states do you anticipate talking about Project 2025 could have the most impact with voters?
Well, again, the big idea here is that Donald Trump is out for himself all the time. He wants grievance, and he wants the power. He's now gotten the Supreme Court to treat him differently than any other human being. And now Project 2025 helps him close the gap on being able to do the things that he said that they were going to do in the end. So we'll be telling people this, of course, everywhere that we go. But the American public doesn't need much more evidence, for example, that Donald Trump does not respect women, from his accusations of sexual abuse to rape to now having a vice presidential candidate that basically thinks that women that don't have children shouldn't have anything to say about anything, and now evidently can't even teach kids in class. So I think women in America have a pretty good idea about who's on their side. Kamala Harris is. She will continue to fight for them. Project 2025 actually wants to give him the power to monitor women's pregnancies. And if that doesn't scare the hell out of you, I don't think anything will.
Mr. Mayor, I want to get your reaction, the Harris campaign's reaction to a story we were talking about earlier in the show, and that is some officials at Arlington National Cemetery say that they were bullied, intimidated. There's an altercation with some Trump campaign officials when he was there Monday and attempting to film portions of what he was doing there, and there's been an outcry that he is perhaps using the nation's most sacred space as backdrop for political purposes. What does the campaign have to say about this?
Well, I think the only thing you can say about it, based on the comments of his chief of staff, John Kelly, is that it's not a surprise to anybody that he disrespects veterans. He called them losers. I mean, this story has been covered many, many, many times. So nothing Donald Trump does in this space should really kind of surprise anybody. He's done it again and again, and it's just, you know, sad.
And Mr. Mayor, lastly, Donald Trump last night said that terms were agreed to for the first debate, September 10th, between himself and the vice president. Can you update has the Harris campaign also signed off on this?
You know, it's just, I find it so interesting that what we're fighting about is the fact that his own team wants to shut him up. I don't know if I've ever heard that before in the debates and the rules of the debates. Look, if the microphones stay on, people are going to hear what he says. If they stay off, he's going to yell and scream anyway. He's an uncontrollable guy. He's unhinged. I heard that he just went on TV with Dr. Phil and claims that he won the California election, although he lost by 5 million votes. This is a delusional guy. And rather than talking about the microphones, we ought to continue to talk about the fact that Donald Trump evidently does not see reality. And that's really kind of a critical part, because some people want to give him the power of the presidency so that he can use it in a way that's going to hurt the American people. And we're not going to let that happen.
And Vice President Harris and her running mate on the road in Georgia today. National co-chair for the Harris-Walz campaign, Mitch Landrieu. Mitch, thank you for joining us this morning.
Great to be with you. Thank you.
And as we wrap things up, as we hinted earlier, exactly 10 years ago today, the world was rocked by a political scandal of simply epic proportions. The Daily Show brings us back to that harrowing day.
The president came out addressing reporters on Thursday, and he was wearing this tan suit.
President Obama's decision to wear a light tan suit at yesterday's news conference. He was wearing a tan suit.
Light tan suit.
I think it was shocking to a lot of people. Is this an effort to make him look warmer?
No way I think any of us can excuse what the president did yesterday. I mean, and then for him to walk out, I'm not trying to be trivial here, but in a light suit, light tan suit.
Also known as Tangate.
Tan suit, and how the tan suit made him look unpresidential.
Whoever talked him into going into a tan suit, they're so desperate because of these low poll numbers, they're willing to do anything.
The tan suit made him look unpresidential.
10 years later, we are still recovering from that moment. On that note, that does it for us this morning. Morning Joe will be back tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern. Perhaps I'll be in tan.